They say love is patient, love is kind. But my husband? He was neither. He laughed at my worn-out shoes, mocked my hands from scrubbing floors to pay his debts, and threw me out in the rain for a woman with a fake Gucci bag. He thought I was trash. He didn't know that the trash in his pocket was a lottery ticket worth $20 billion. And he definitely didn't know that the man coming to pick me up wasn't an Uber driver, but Duk Jae-seok, the most feared mafia boss in Seoul. Before we dive into this mess, hit that like button if you've ever had someone underestimate your worth, and comment where you're watching from. I want to see my people. Make sure you subscribe, because the karma coming Derek's way is delicious. The rain in Lagos, or maybe it was London or New York, honestly, heartbreak feels the same in every city, was cold enough to freeze the marrow in your bones. But the chill I felt didn't come from the weather. It came from the man standing in the doorway of the apartment I'd paid for. The apartment I scrubbed. The apartment where I had just cooked his favorite jollof rice, thinking maybe, just maybe, tonight would be different. Did you hear me, Elizabeth? Derek sneered, leaning against the doorframe. He looked good, I'll give him that. He was wearing the navy blazer I bought him for his birthday, the one that cost me 3 months of overtime cleaning office buildings downtown. I said, pack your things. You're cramping my style. I stood there, a wet rag in my hand, water dripping from a leak in the ceiling into a bucket. My shoes were soaked through. Canvas sneakers with a hole in the left toe. I'd been meaning to buy new ones, but Derek said he needed money for a business investment, some AI-driven asset management tool he swore would make us rich. I gave him the cash. I always gave him the cash. Derek, I whispered, my voice trembling. What are you talking about? It's raining. Where am I supposed to go? Not my problem, he said, checking his watch. It was a fake Rolex, but he wore it like he owned the bank. Chloe is coming over. She doesn't like clutter. And frankly, Liz, look at you. You look like help. The words slapped me harder than a physical blow. I looked down at my hands. They were ash gray from the cold and rough from bleach. I had calluses on my palms from wringing out mops. I got those calluses working to pay off his gambling debts from last year. I worked for you, I said, the anger finally starting to spark under the sadness. I scrubbed floors so you could pretend to be a big shot. I paid the rent when you were between opportunities. I haven't bought a new dress in 2 years, Derek. He laughed. It was a cruel, hollow sound. And that's exactly why. You have no ambition, Elizabeth. You're small. You're content with scrubbing. I'm going places. Chloe. She understands luxury. She understands the mindset of a winner. A car horn honked outside. Derek's face lit up. He pushed past me, not even caring that he stepped on my foot with his heavy boots, and threw the door open. A woman stepped out of a bright yellow cab. She was holding a bag that had the Gucci print, but the stitching was all wrong. I knew quality. I cleaned the houses of rich people. I knew what the real thing looked like. But she wore it with an arrogance that matched Derek's. Babe, she squealed, running up the steps. She looked at me and wrinkled her nose. EW. Is this the cleaning lady you told me about? Why is she still here? Derek wrapped an arm around her waist, pulling her close. She's just leaving. Right, Elizabeth? He reached inside the apartment, grabbed my duffel bag, the one I used for work, and tossed it onto the wet pavement. It landed with a splash. My Bible, my spare uniform, and the photo of my late father were in there. Get out, Derek said, his voice dropping to a low, menacing growl. Don't make me call the cops and tell them you're trespassing. I'm your wife, I choked out. Not for long. My lawyer is drafting the papers. I need a partner who fits my future, not an anchor dragging me back to the gutter. He slammed the door. The sound echoed in the street. Click. The lock turned. I stood there for a full minute, just staring at the wood. The rain plastered my hair to my face. I could hear them laughing inside. I could hear the music start, some smooth jazz playlist I had curated for our anniversary last month. He was using my playlist to romance her. I walked down the steps, my legs feeling like lead. I grabbed the handle of my soggy duffel bag and started walking. I didn't know where. I just knew I couldn't stay there. I walked until my feet bled. I ended up in an industrial district, near the old shipping yards. It was quiet here, except for the distant hum of machinery. I found a dry spot under a concrete overhang of a closed-down warehouse and collapsed. I was shivering uncontrollably. I opened my bag to find something dry to wrap around myself. My hand brushed against a thick, creamy envelope tucked into the side pocket. My father's letter. He died 3 months ago. A quiet, humble man who worked as a gardener for 30 years. He never had money. We lived paycheck to paycheck. But on his deathbed, he handed me this envelope and made me swear not to open it until I was truly alone. "If you are with Derek, do not open it," he had wheezed, gripping my hand. "He is a vulture, Lizzie. He will pick your bones clean. Open this only when the vulture is gone." I thought he was just delirious from the medication. I had kept it sealed out of respect. Well, the vulture was gone. I was truly alone. With trembling fingers, I tore the seal. Inside wasn't a heartfelt goodbye note. It was a single sheet of heavy, expensive paper with a gold crest I didn't recognize, a dragon coiled around a rose. And a small, strange black card with a chip in it. The letter was typed. "Elizabeth. If you are reading this, I have passed on, and you are safe from those who would use you. You thought I was a gardener. I was. But before that, I was a guardian. Years ago, I saved the life of a man named Duk Jae-seok in Lagos. A blood debt was formed. I never collected it. I saved it for you. They have been watching you, waiting for my signal or your need. You are not poor, my child. You are the beneficiary of the silent trust. The card in this envelope activates the protocol. Do not go back to the husband. He is dust. You are a queen. Call the number on the back of the card. Tell them, the rose has bloomed." Dad. I stared at the paper. Was this a joke? My dad, the man who patched his own trousers with duct tape, knew people with gold crusts? My phone had 4% battery left. I almost didn't do it. It felt insane. But the cold was seeping into my lungs and I had nothing left to lose. I dialed the number. It rang once. "Speak," a deep voice answered. "No hello. Just a command." The rose has bloomed," I whispered, feeling foolish. Silence. Then, the sound of movement on the other end. "Location? I'm under the overhang at the old shipyard. Near District 9. Do not move. Keep your head down. We are 1 minute away." The line went dead. 1 minute? That was impossible. Unless they were already nearby. I hugged my knees to my chest. Maybe I was hallucinating. Maybe the stress had finally snapped my mind. 30 seconds later, the ground vibrated. It wasn't a subtle rumble. It was a low, powerful growl of vengeance. I looked up. Turning the corner into the desolate alley wasn't a taxi. It wasn't a police car. 3 matte black SUVs, massive and armored, glided through the rain like sharks in dark water. They moved in perfect formation. The headlights were blinding white LEDs that cut through the gloom, illuminating the graffiti on the walls. My heart hammered against my ribs. I scrambled backward, pressing my back against the cold concrete wall. What had I done? Who were these people? The cars stopped in unison right in front of me. The doors of the lead and rear vehicles flew open. Men poured out. 6 of them. They weren't wearing police uniforms. They were dressed in sharp, tailored black suits that cost more than my entire life's earnings. They moved with terrifying precision, scanning the perimeter, hands hovering near their waists. They had earpieces. Then, the middle car's rear door opened. A man stepped out. The rain seemed to hesitate around him. An assistant immediately snapped open a large black umbrella, holding it over him so not a single drop touched his suit. He was tall, imposing. He wore a suit the color of deep wine, tailored so perfectly it looked like a second skin. His hair was dark, styled back, revealing a sharp, angular face that could cut glass. But it was his eyes that froze me. They were dark, endless, and terrifyingly cold. He walked toward me, his leather shoes making a rhythmic click-clack on the wet pavement. I tried to stand, but my legs failed me. I cowered, pulling my dirty coat tighter. I don't have any money, I stammered. Please. The men formed a semicircle around us, their backs to me, blocking out the world. A wall of human steel. The man in the wine suit stopped 2 feet away. He looked down at me. His gaze swept over my wet hair, my trembling hands, my hole-riddled sneakers. I saw a flicker of something in his jaw, a tightening, a muscle jumping. Anger? Disgust? Slowly, gracefully, he lowered himself. He didn't squat. He went down on one knee, into the mud. The Mafia boss ruined his perfect suit pants in the grime of a Lagos shipyard, just to be at eye level with me. He reached out a hand. On his wrist, a platinum watch glinted. On his fingers, heavy silver rings. And peeking out from the cuff of his shirt, the black ink of a tattoo, scales of a dragon. Mrs. Elizabeth, he said. His voice was like velvet wrapped around a jagged rock. Deep, accented, and vibrating with power. He didn't look at me like I was trash. He looked at me like I was a fragile, priceless vase that someone had carelessly dropped. My name is Duk Jae-seok, he said softly. I apologize for our delay. It is unacceptable that you have been cold for even a second. He bowed his head. To me. The debt is called, he whispered. Your enemies are now my enemies. And I have never lost a war. He offered me his hand again. This time I took it. His grip was firm, dry, and warm, a stark contrast to the freezing rain biting at my skin. He didn't just pull me up, he stabilized me, his other hand hovering near the small of my back without actually touching me, as if he were guarding a flame from the wind. Into the car, he commanded softly. The interior of the SUV was a different universe. It smelled of rich mahogany, sanitized air, and something spicy, like cedarwood. The silence was absolute as the heavy door thudded shut, sealing out the noise of the rain and the shipyard. I sat on the edge of the cream leather seat, afraid to lean back. My clothes were soaked. Mud was dripping from my sneakers onto the pristine floor mats. I'm ruining your car, I whispered, looking down at the mess I was making. I'm sorry. I can pay for the cleaning, eventually. Duk Jae-seok sat across from me. He pressed a button, and a privacy partition slid up, separating us from the driver. He looked at the mud on the floor, then at me. He didn't look annoyed. He looked pained. He reached into a compartment and pulled out a thick, white towel. He didn't hand it to me. He leaned forward and gently draped it over my shivering shoulders. Elizabeth, he said, the syllables of my name sounding foreign and heavy on his tongue. You could burn this car to the ground right now, and it would not matter. Do not apologize for existing. He tapped a console on his armrest. A holographic screen flickered to life between us. Your father wanted you to be safe. But safety requires resources. Charts and numbers began to scroll across the screen. I squinted, my eyes stinging from exhaustion. I saw zeros. A lot of zeros. What is this? The silent trust, he explained, his voice devoid of emotion, like he was reading a weather report. Your father invested his early earnings into emerging tech markets in the 90s. He bought land in Gangnam before the boom. He funded AI startups that are now the backbone of global asset management. He swiped a finger. The final figure rested on the screen. $20,450,000,000 US. I laughed. It was a hysterical, broken sound. That's a phone number. That's not real money. It is liquid, Duk said calmly. And it is yours. Access code red 01. The man you call husband. Derek? He was struggling to pay a gambling debt of $50,000 last week, correct? I froze. How do you know that? Duk didn't answer. He just poured a glass of water from a crystal decanter and held it out to me. My hand shook so badly that water sloshed over the rim. He didn't pull away. He steadied the glass against my lips until I drank. We have been watching, he admitted. The trust has eyes. We use predictive algorithms to monitor threats to the beneficiary. Derek was flagged as a parasitic entity 6 months ago, but your father forbade interference until you reached your breaking point. He sat back, crossing his legs. The wine-colored suit fabric didn't wrinkle. You reached it tonight. I lowered the glass. The reality was starting to settle in, heavy and terrifying. So, I'm rich. No, Duk corrected. Rich is what your husband pretends to be. You are a sovereign power. The car slowed down. I looked out the tinted window. We weren't going to a hotel. We were pulling into the underground entrance of the Spire, the tallest, most exclusive residential building in the city. The kind of place Derek used to look at and say, one day, babe, when I make it big. We glided into a private garage. A medical team was waiting. Medical. I panicked, shrinking back into the seat. I'm not sick. I don't need a hospital. You're shaking. You have been exposed to hypothermic conditions. And his eyes dropped to my hands again. You're injured. The door opened. This time, Duk didn't wait for me to struggle out. He stepped out, turned, and before I could protest, he scooped me up into his arms. I gasped, instinctively wrapping my arms around his neck. He was solid, like a statue warmed by the sun. He carried me effortlessly, ignoring the staff who bowed deeply as we passed. Mr. Duk, the suit is prepped, a woman in a sharp gray suit said, rushing to keep up with his long strides. We have the trauma kit and the warm fluids ready. Clear the hallway, he ordered. No eyes on her. He carried me into a private elevator. As the doors closed, I was pressed against the expensive fabric of his suit. I could feel the slow, steady beat of his heart against my arm. It was the only calm thing in my world. You can put me down, I murmured. I know. He didn't put me down. The penthouse was bigger than the entire apartment building I had just been kicked out of. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city rain, turning the lights of the skyline into a blurred watercolor painting. He set me down on a massive velvet sofa that felt like a cloud. 2 nurses moved in immediately. They were efficient, silent. One began checking my vitals, while the other gently peeled the wet socks from my feet. Duk stood by the window, his back to me. He had taken off his suit jacket, revealing a white dress shirt and a gun holster strapped under his left arm. The leather of the holster creaked slightly as he adjusted it. The husband, he said, still looking out at the rain. What do you want to do with him? The nurse was applying an antiseptic balm to the raw skin on my heels. It stung, bringing me back to the moment. I thought about Derek. I thought about the way he laughed when I asked for grocery money. I thought about the fake Gucci bag on Chloe's shoulder. I thought about the rain. I want him to hurt, I said. The words tasted like bile. Is that wrong? I want him to feel as small as he made me feel. Duk turned around. The overhead lights caught the hard lines of his face. For the first time, the coldness in his eyes thawed, replaced by a dark, dangerous heat. It is not wrong, he said. It is justice. He walked over to the sofa. The nurses stepped back, sensing the shift in the room. He sat on the coffee table in front of me, ignoring the expensive art books stacked there. He reached out and took my hand, the one with the roughest calluses. He ran his thumb over the hardened skin of my palm. His thumb was smooth, but his grip spoke of violence held in check. These hands, he said quietly, almost to himself. They have worked enough. From this moment on, you do not lift a finger unless you wish to point at something you want to own. My breath hitched. The intensity of his gaze was overwhelming. It wasn't a pity. It was a vow. Derek thinks you are gone, Duk continued. He thinks you are crying in a shelter. We will let him think that for exactly 48 hours. Why 48 hours? Because the Foundation's gala is in 2 days. Derek spent half your savings buying a ticket to get in, hoping to pitch his business to investors. A small, cruel smile touched Duk's lips. He wants to meet the investors? He will. He will meet the owner of the capital he is so desperate for. He stood up, releasing my hand slowly, letting his fingers brush against my wrist where my pulse was hammering. Rest, Elizabeth. The doctors will give you something to help you sleep. Tomorrow, we burn the clothes you arrived in. Tomorrow, we will build the woman who will destroy him. He turned to leave, but stopped at the door. And Elizabeth? Yes. I have assigned a security detail to your door. If you need anything at all, you do not ask. You demand. He walked out. I sat there, the warmth of his touch still lingering on my palm. I looked out the window. Somewhere out there, Derek was probably popping champagne with Chloe, celebrating his freedom. He had no idea that the timer had just started ticking. I slept for 14 hours. When I woke up, I didn't reach for a mop or a bucket. I reached for a panic button that didn't exist, my heart racing, thinking I was late for a shift I no longer had. Then I saw the ceiling. It was hand-painted with soft clouds, illuminated by recessed lighting that mimicked a gentle sunrise. The sheets against my skin were silk, high thread count, cool and smooth. I sat up. The soreness in my body was gone, replaced by a strange, heavy lethargy, the kind that comes when adrenaline finally leaves your system. "Good morning, Ms. Elizabeth," a voice said. I jumped. Standing by the door was a young woman with a tablet. She bowed respectfully. "I am Ji-yoon. Mr. Duk has instructed us to begin the preparation protocols whenever you are awake. He is currently in a meeting with the board of directors regarding the Foundation's AI integration, but he has cleared his schedule for you at 2 p.m. Preparation protocols?" I rubbed my face. My skin felt different. Someone had applied expensive creams while I slept. "The gala is tomorrow night," Ji-yoon said, walking over and pressing a button on the wall. The heavy velvet curtains parted, revealing a bright, clear Seoul afternoon. "Mr. Duk said you are not going as a guest. You are going like a hurricane." The next few hours were a blur of organized chaos, but of the most luxurious kind. It wasn't just a makeover, it was a reconstruction. A team of 5 specialists descended on the suite. There was a dermatologist who used light therapy on my hands to soften the calluses Derek had mocked. There was a hairstylist who specialized in natural textures, treating my curls like they were spun gold, hydrating and defining them until they formed a halo around my face. And then there was the business briefing. While my nails were being painted deep blood red, a man in a sharp suit, Mr. Henderson, the estate attorney, walked me through my assets. "Your father's initial investments in neural network architecture have yielded significant dividends," Henderson explained, showing me a graph on a tablet. "The Silent Trust owns 40% of the logistics AI used by most shipping companies in Asia, including the company your husband is currently trying to court." I stared at the screen. Derek is trying to pitch his business to me? Essentially, Henderson smirked. He is pitching to a subsidiary of a shell company owned by the trust. He believes he is meeting a Korean venture capitalist named the chairman. He does not know the chairman is technically you. A dark satisfaction curled in my stomach. "Let him pitch," I said softly. "As you wish. We have also allocated funds for your personal wellness. A private retreat in Jeju has been booked for next month, and the foundation has therapists on retainer to help process the transition." It was overwhelming. But it was also armoring me. Every layer of lotion, every piece of information, every dollar revealed was another brick in the wall I was building against the old Elizabeth. The weak Elizabeth. At 2 p.m. sharp, the double doors opened. The room went silent. The stylists stepped back, heads bowed. Duk Jae-seok walked in. He had changed. He was wearing a black shirt today, unbuttoned at the top, sleeves rolled up to his elbows, revealing the full sleeve of tattoos on his left arm. The dragon ink seemed to move as his muscles flexed. He looked less like a businessman today and more like what he truly was, a warlord. He didn't look at the stylists. His eyes locked on me. I was sitting in front of the vanity, wearing a silk robe. My hair was finished, my skin glowing. I felt exposed under his gaze, but not in a bad way. It felt electric. "Leave us," he said. His voice was low, barely a whisper, but the room cleared in 3 seconds. He walked up behind me. I watched him in the mirror. He placed his hands on the back of my chair, leaning in so his face was next to mine. The contrast was striking, his pale, sharp features next to my warm, dark skin. "You slept," he stated. "Yes." "Good." His eyes scanned my reflection. "You look rested." "But the eyes, they're still sad." "I'm not sad," I lied. "I'm angry." "Anger is good. Anger is fuel." "But sadness?" "Sadness is a leak." He straightened up. "Stand up, Elizabeth." I stood and turned to face him. He was so tall. I had to crane my neck to look him in the eye. "There are 3 dresses arriving in 10 minutes, he said. "Designers sent them over. One is gold. One is white. One is red. Which one should I wear?" He took a step closer. The air between us thickened. I could smell his scent: tobacco, cedar, and rain. "The white is for innocence. You are no longer innocent. You have seen the cruelty of men. The gold is for royalty. You are a queen, yes, but tomorrow is not a coronation." He paused, his dark eyes dropping to my lips, then back up to my eyes. My heart hammered against my ribs so hard I thought he could see it. "Wear the red," he whispered. "Red is for war. Red is for blood. Red is for the heart you are going to rip out of his chest." He reached out, his fingers grazing my cheekbone. It was the lightest touch, a phantom sensation that sent shivers down my spine. He wasn't touching me sexually, yet it was the most intimate thing anyone had done to me in years. "Do you trust me?" he asked. I don't know you. You know I came for you in the rain. You know I hold your enemies in my palm. Is that not enough?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, I trust you." "Good." He dropped his hand. "Because tonight, we rehearsed. You need to learn how to walk, how to speak, and how to look at a man who betrayed you without flinching. You have $20 billion, Elizabeth. But money does not make you powerful. I will make you powerful." He walked over to a table where a sleek, black gun lay, not a real one, I realized, but a heavy replica. Beside it was a flute of champagne. "Pick up the glass," he ordered. I walked over and picked it up. "Now, imagine Derek is standing in front of you. He is begging. He is telling you he made a mistake. What do? I tell him to leave." "Wrong." Duk's voice cracked like a whip. "You say nothing. You drink. You look through him. You make him wonder if he even exists." He moved behind me again, correcting my posture, his hands firm on my shoulders, pulling them back. "Chin up. Higher. You are looking at the sky, not the dirt. Derek is dirt. You do not look at dirt unless you are stepping on it. We spent hours like that." He was a relentless teacher. He taught me how to enter a room. He taught me how to sit so that my legs looked miles long. He taught me the art of the silence, the mafia pause, he called it. The way you wait 3 seconds before answering a question to assert dominance. By the time evening fell, I was exhausted, but I felt different. Taller. Harder. Dinner was served on the balcony. We ate in silence, the city lights twinkling below us. "Why are you doing this?" I asked, breaking the silence. "I know about the debt to my father. I know about the oath. But this feels personal for you." Duk stopped cutting his steak. He looked at the knife in his hand, watching the light glint off the silver. "Men like Derek," he said slowly, "are a disease. They take beautiful, strong things and break them because they are too weak to carry them." He looked up at me. The intensity in his eyes burned. "I have a distaste for waste. And seeing you in that apartment, trying to fix a man who is unworthy of the air you breathe, it offended me." He took a sip of his wine, his gaze never leaving mine. "Tomorrow, he will see what he threw away. And when he realizes it, when the regret eats him alive, that will be my payment." He stood up. "Go to sleep, Elizabeth. Tomorrow, the world meets the beneficiary. And Derek meets his end." I went in my room, but I didn't sleep right away. I stood in front of the full-length mirror. I practiced the look he taught me. The cold, detached stare. I wasn't Elizabeth the cleaning lady anymore. I wasn't the wife begging for affection. I wore a red dress. I was the storm. And tomorrow I was going to rain on Derek's parade. The next evening, the atmosphere in the penthouse was tense. The sun had set, and the city was waking up for the night. The dress hung on the mannequin like a ghost of blood. It was a custom-made silk gown in a deep, dark crimson. It was backless, with a slit that went up to my thigh. It was dangerous. Ji-yoon helped me with it. It fits like a second skin. When I stepped into the heels, Manolo Blahniks, encrusted with crystals, I felt 6 feet tall. My hair was swept up, exposing the long line of my neck. My makeup was sharp, accentuating my eyes and lips. I put on the jewelry, a diamond choker that cost more than the entire neighborhood I grew up in. I walked out into the living room. Duk was waiting. He was wearing a tuxedo. Black, tailored to perfection, with a velvet bow tie. He looked devastating. He was adjusting his cufflinks when he heard me. He turned. He froze. His hands stilled. He didn't say anything. He didn't move. He just stared. His eyes traveled from the hem of my dress up to my face, drinking me in. For a moment, the mask of the Mafia Boss slipped. I saw a flash of raw, unguarded hunger. He took a breath, his chest expanding against his shirt. Elizabeth, he breathed. It wasn't a compliment. It was a prayer. He walked over to me, stopping just inches away. The heat radiating off him was intoxicating. "You are lethal," he whispered. He offered me his arm. "Shall we go execute your husband?" I took his arm. The fabric of his tuxedo was smooth under my fingers. "Let's go," I said. We headed to the elevator. The descent felt like falling into battle. Downstairs, the convoy was waiting. But this time, we weren't taking the armored SUVs. We were taking the Rolls-Royce Phantom. As the driver opened the door, Duk leaned in close to my ear. "Remember," he murmured, his breath hot against my skin. "Tonight, you do not speak to him. You speak to the room. He is just a spectator in your life now." I nodded. The car pulled out into the night. We were heading to the Grand Hall. The Gala was the event of the year. Every CEO, every celebrity, every power player in Seoul was there. And Derek. Derek was there, desperate, sweating, holding onto his fake socialite, hoping for a miracle. He was about to get one. Just not the one he expected. The silence inside the Rolls-Royce was heavier than the armored steel of the doors. It wasn't an empty silence, it was a pressurized container of anticipation. Outside, the world was passing in a blur of neon lights and wet asphalt, but inside, the air was thick with the scent of leather and the undeniable, magnetic pull of the man sitting next to me. Duk Jae-seok didn't look at his phone. He didn't look out the window. He looked at my hands. They were resting in my lap, clutching a small, crystal-encrusted clutch that cost more than Derek's car. My knuckles were white. "Breathe," Duk murmured. He didn't reach out to touch me this time, but his voice was a caress. "You are vibrating." "I'm terrified," I confessed, my voice barely audible over the hum of the engine. What if I trip? What if I open my mouth and the cleaning lady comes out? What if he laughs at me again? Duk turned his body toward me. The movement was fluid, like a predator shifting in the tall grass. The dim light of the street lamps cut across his face, highlighting the sharp angle of his jaw and the dangerous promise in his eyes. "Elizabeth," he said, and the way he said my name made my stomach flip. "The cleaning lady died in the rain 2 days ago. The woman sitting here owns the building we are driving to. And if he laughs, I will buy the air in his lungs and evict him from it." The car slowed. We had arrived. Through the tinted windows, I saw the chaos. The paparazzi were a swarming sea of flashes, yelling names, fighting for position. A red carpet stretched up the stairs of the Grand Hall like a tongue of fire. Security guards in black suits, men who worked for the foundation, I realized, were holding back the crowd. The driver opened the door. The noise of the outside world rushed in shouting, camera shutters, the distant wail of sirens. Duk stepped out first. He buttoned his tuxedo jacket with a casual, arrogant grace. He scanned the crowd once, his expression bored, almost disdainful. Then, he turned and extended his hand into the dark interior of the car. I took it. As I stepped out, the flashes went blindingly white. A collective gasp rippled through the photographers near the front. They didn't know who I was. They knew Duk Jae-seok, the shadow of Seoul, the man who owned half the city's underground and a third of its skyline, but they had never seen him with a woman. Not like this. I stood up, the red silk cascading down my legs, the slit revealing just enough skin to be dangerous. The cool night air hit my face, but I didn't shiver. Duk's hand moved from my fingers to the small of my back. His palm was warm, possessive. He guided me forward, his body shielding me from the aggression of the press, yet displaying me like a prized jewel. "Who is she?" someone shouted. "Mr. Duk. Over here. Look at the dress." We walked up the stairs. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, but I remembered the training. Chin up. Eyes forward. You are looking at the sky, not the dirt. We reached the top of the stairs and entered the grand hall. If the outside was chaotic, the inside was a different kind of pressure. The room was a cavern of gold and crystal. Chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling. A string quartet was playing something haunting and classical in the corner. The air smelled of expensive perfume, champagne, and ambition. The moment we stepped onto the marble floor, the room went quiet. It started near the entrance and rippled outward like a wave until hundreds of people, CEOs, politicians, celebrities, stopped talking and turned to look. Duk didn't pause. He walked us through the center of the room, his stride long and measured. The crowd parted for him. It wasn't out of politeness, it was out of fear. They knew the dragon tattoo hidden under his shirt. They knew the blood oath. And then I saw him. He was standing near the bar, looking nervous. He was wearing the same navy blazer he had kicked me out in, though he had tried to spruce it up with a cheap gold pocket square. He was holding a glass of whiskey like a lifeline, his eyes darting around the room, scanning for someone important to talk to. Derek. Chloe was next to him, scrolling on her phone, looking bored. She wore a sparkly pink dress that looked like a costume compared to the heavy, liquid silk I was wearing. My breath hitched. The old instinct to shrink, to hide, to apologize flared up in my chest. Duk felt it. His fingers tightened imperceptibly on my waist. He leaned down, his lips grazing my ear. "Steady," he whispered. "He is not a monster. He is just a man with a cheap suit and a debt." We moved closer. Derek was talking to an older man, trying to hand him a business card. The older man looked annoyed, trying to back away. "Innovative AI algorithms," Derek was saying, his voice pitchy with desperation. "It's going to revolutionize the sector. I just need a seed investment of." The older man looked up, saw Duk approaching, and his eyes went wide. He immediately brushed past Derek, ignoring the card. "Mr. Duk," the man exclaimed, bowing slightly. "We didn't know you were attending." Derek spun around, frustration written all over his face. "Hey, I was talking to." He stopped. He saw Duk Jae-seok, the most powerful man in the room. Derek's mouth opened slightly. He knew the face. Everyone knew the face. This was the chairman he had been dying to meet. This was the ticket to the billions. Derek straightened his blazer, swallowing hard. He put on his best salesman smile, the one he used to use on me when he wanted to borrow money. "Mr. Duk," Derek said, stepping forward, hand extended. "It is an honor. Truly. I'm Derek Vance. I have a proposal that fits perfectly with your portfolio." Duk stopped. He looked at Derek's hand. He didn't take it. He just stared at it until Derek, flushing red, slowly lowered it. "And this," Derek stammered, trying to recover, gesturing to Chloe, who had finally looked up from her phone. "This is my partner, Chloe." Then, Derek looked at me. He had been so focused on the man in the tuxedo that he hadn't really looked at the woman on his arm. He had just registered red dress and expensive. Now he looked at my face. Time seemed to warp. I saw the recognition hit him in slow motion. Confusion first. She looks like, no, it can't be. Then disbelief. Then shock. His eyes bulged. He took a staggering step back, nearly knocking over a waiter with a tray of champagne. Liz, he whispered. It came out as a squeak. Elizabeth. Chloe looked at me, squinting. Her jaw dropped. The silence in our little circle was deafening. The string quartet seemed to fade away. You, Derek pointed a shaking finger at me. What are you? You're the cleaning lady. You, my wife. He looked at Duk, then back at me. What is going on here? Duk finally spoke. His voice was calm, bored, and lethal. Do you know this person, Elizabeth? He asked me, though he knew the answer. I looked at Derek. I looked at the sweat beading on his forehead. I looked at the fraying cuffs of his blazer. I looked at the panic in his eyes. I remembered the rain. I remembered the cold. I took a sip of my champagne. I let the silence stretch for 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. No, I said coolly. I don't believe I do. Derek looked like he had been slapped. What? Liz, stop playing. It's me. Derek. Your husband. I kicked you out 2 days ago. How are you? How are you here with him? He stepped forward aggressively, his shock turning into that familiar, bullying anger. He reached out to grab my arm. Take off that dress. Where did you get the money for that? Did you steal it? You're coming with me, we need to talk. Before his fingers could graze my skin, Duk moved. It was a blur of motion. 1 second Duk was standing still, the next, he had stepped between us. He didn't hit Derek. He didn't have to. He simply caught Derek's wrist in midair. Duk didn't squeeze. He didn't twist. He just held it there, an immovable wall of force. If you touch her, Duk said, his voice dropping to a subsonic growl that vibrated in my chest, you will lose the hand. And then you will lose the arm. And then you will lose the rest. Derek froze. He looked into Duk's eyes, the eyes of a man who had buried bodies in the foundations of the buildings Derek wanted to work in, and the color drained from his face. She's my wife, Derek whimpered, but the fight was already leaving him. She's nobody. She scrubs floors. Duk released Derek's wrist with a shove that sent him stumbling back into Chloe. She is the beneficiary of the silent trust, Duk announced, loud enough for the nearby circle of investors to hear. She is the majority shareholder of the logistics firm you are begging for money from. And she is under my personal protection. The whisper ripple turned into a roar. Majority shareholder? Silent trust? The investors who had ignored Derek suddenly looked at me with hungry, calculating eyes. Derek stared at me, his mouth agape. The trust? But you have no money. You gave me your last $20 for pizza last week. I gave you charity, I said, my voice steady, though my knees were trembling. Because I felt sorry for you. But I'm done with charity, Derek. Mr. Duk, a smooth voice interrupted. It was the event organizer. The presentation is about to begin. If you and the lady, would you take your seats in the VIP box? Duk offered me his arm again. He didn't look at Derek. To him, Derek was already a ghost. Shall we? He asked me. I looked at Derek one last time. He looked shattered. He looked small. Goodbye, Derek, I said softly. We turned and walked away, leaving him standing in the middle of the ballroom floor, staring at my back, while the sharks of the business world began to circle, wondering how they had missed the woman in the red dress. As we walked toward the VIP balcony, Duk leaned in close. You did well, he murmured. I almost threw up, I admitted. But you didn't. You broke him. And we haven't even started the real work yet. He guided me up the velvet-carpeted stairs to the private box that overlooked the entire hall. From up here, the people looked like ants. Derek was just a speck in a navy blazer. Now, Duk said, pouring me a fresh glass of champagne as we sat in the shadowed privacy of the box. We watched him unravel. He sat close to me. His thigh brushed against mine under the table. The heat of him was distracting. Why did you say you were protecting me? I asked, turning to face him. The ambient light of the chandelier below reflected in his dark eyes. He looked at me for a long moment. The mask was back in place, but there was a crack in it. A tiny fissure where something raw was leaking through. Because, he said, his voice rough. Since the moment I pulled you from the rain, I have not wanted to do anything else. My heart skipped a beat. The air in the box suddenly felt very thin. Duck. Look, he commanded, pointing down at the floor. Down below, Derek wasn't leaving. He was arguing with security. He was pointing up at our box. He was losing control. He is going to try to come up here, Duck said calmly. He thinks he can talk his way back into the money. He thinks he can charm you like he used to. Duck turned his wrist, checking his watch. In 2 minutes, the Foundation announces the acquisition of his debt. In 3 minutes, the bank seizes his assets. In 5 minutes, he realizes he doesn't have a ride home. He looked at me, a dark smirk playing on his lips. Are you hungry, Elizabeth? Because revenge is best served with a view. Watch, Duck whispered. Below us, the massive LED screen behind the stage shifted. The pleasant loops of corporate logos vanished, replaced by a stark, black and white financial ticker. A voice boomed over the speakers, the voice of the Foundation's chief financial officer. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of our commitment to cleaning up the market, the Silent Trust is pleased to announce the acquisition of several distressed asset portfolios tonight. Names scrolled by. Big companies. Small companies. And then, right at the bottom, glowing in high definition, Vance Global Enterprises. Derek froze. He was still arguing with a security guard near the stairs, his face red, pointing up at us. But when he heard the name of his company, the company he had built on my credit cards and my sweat, he stopped dead. He slowly turned to the screen. Acquired due to insolvency, the announcer continued cheerfully. All assets seized. All debts absorbed by the trust. I saw Derek check his phone. Even from this distance, I could see the light of the screen illuminate his panic. He was tapping furiously, checking his bank app, checking his email. He looked up. His eyes locked onto the balcony. He couldn't see me clearly in the shadows, but he knew I was there. That's illegal, he screamed. His voice cracked, echoing awkwardly in the sudden silence of the hall. You can't do that. That's my company. He tried to push past the guard. Elizabeth. Tell them it's a mistake. The guard, a man whose neck was thicker than Derek's thigh, didn't budge. He simply placed a hand on Derek's chest. Sir, you are causing a disturbance, the guard said. Disturbance? That woman up there is my wife. She's stealing my company. People were laughing now. Not loud, boisterous laughter, but the cruel, tittering laughter of the elite watching a jester fail. Chloe had already backed away from him. I saw her slipping into the crowd, the fake Gucci bag clutched tight, disappearing toward the exit. She knew a sinking ship when she saw one. Derek was alone. He looks, I hesitated, searching for the word. Finished, Duck supplied. He wasn't looking at Derek. He was watching me, gauging my reaction. Do you feel sorry for him? I looked at the man who had thrown my clothes in the rain. I looked at the man who had called me trash. No, I said, and I was surprised by how true it was. I don't feel sorry. I just feel tired. I want to go home. Home, Duck repeated. The word sounded heavy. Yes. Let's go. He signaled to his team. We didn't take the main stairs. We took a private elevator at the back of the box, descending into the cool, concrete bowels of the building where the Rolls-Royce was waiting. The ride back to the spire was quiet, but the air between us had shifted. The tension wasn't about the Gala anymore. It was about us. It was about the way his knee pressed against mine on the leather seat, and neither of us moved. It was about the way the streetlights washed over his tattoos, making the dragon look like it was breathing. You were perfect tonight, he said eventually. I was terrified. Bravery is not the absence of fear, Elizabeth. It is action in the face of it. You stood your ground. You claimed what was yours. I didn't claim it, I whispered, looking down at the diamond choker. You gave it to me. The dress, the money, the protection, it's all you. The car stopped at a red light. Duk turned to me. His expression was intense, unreadable. The money was your father's. The dress is just fabric. But the fire? The way you looked at him? That was you. I cannot give you fire, Elizabeth. I can only fan the flames. He reached out and tucked a loose curl behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my neck, dangerously close to the pulse point. His skin was rough, calloused from violence, but his touch was reverent. Do not sell yourself short, he murmured. I have known many powerful men. Most of them would have crumbled under what you endured. You did not crumble. You endured. We arrived at the penthouse. The elevator ride-up felt too short. I wasn't ready for the night to end, but I was also exhausted to my bones. When we stepped into the living room, it was dark, save for the city lights bleeding through the floor-to-ceiling windows. I should go to sleep, I said, standing awkwardly in the middle of the room. Elizabeth. I turned. Duk was standing by the fireplace, loosening his tie. He pulled the velvet strip of fabric free and tossed it onto a chair. Then he unbuttoned the top button of his shirt. The divorce papers, he said. They will be on your desk in the morning. Derek will sign them. He has no choice now that we own his debt. If he wants to stay out of prison for fraud, he signs. Fraud. He was using your identity to open credit lines. We found the records. It is over. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was over. I was free. Suddenly, the room felt very big, and I felt very small in my red dress. Thank you, I said. For everything. Duk walked over to me. He stopped a foot away. The energy radiating off him was palpable. Turn around, he said softly. My heart rate spiked. What? The zipper. You cannot reach it. Oh. I turned around slowly, presenting my back to him. I felt the heat of his body behind me. I felt his hands brush aside my hair, exposing the nape of my neck. I shivered. Cold, he asked. No. He found the zipper. He didn't pull it down immediately. His fingers traced the line of my spine over the silk. You are a dangerous woman, Elizabeth, he whispered into my hair. You have a $20 billion empire and a mafia warlord at your beck and call. What will you do with all this power? I don't want power, I breathed. I just want to be safe. You're safe. He pulled the zipper down slowly. The cool air hit my skin. As long as I draw breath, no one will ever hurt you again. He stopped the zipper at the small of my back. He didn't touch my skin. He stepped back. Go, he said, his voice strained. Before I forget that I am a gentleman. I gathered the dress against my chest and ran to my room. I locked the door and leaned against it, my heart pounding like a drum. I didn't sleep well. I dreamed of rain and dragons and wine-colored suits. The next morning, the sun was blinding. I woke up with a headache, the adrenaline hangover hitting hard. I showered and put on simple clothes, leggings, and a large sweater. I didn't want to be the queen today. I just wanted to be me. I walked out to the kitchen, following the smell of coffee. Duk was there. He was sitting at the island, reading a newspaper, an actual paper one. He was wearing reading glasses. It was such a domestic sight that it stopped me in my tracks. A mafia boss in reading glasses drinking espresso. Good morning, he said without looking up. Morning. Eat. We have a meeting at noon. A meeting? With the lawyers. To finalize the divorce. He finally looked up. He took off the glasses. And to discuss the threat. My stomach dropped. What threat? Derek. But you said he was finished. He is financially finished. But desperation makes men stupid. He has been calling the building security since 4 a.m. He is demanding to see you. Duk stood up and walked over to the counter, pouring me a cup of coffee. He claims he has something of yours. Something you left in the apartment. He says he will burn it if you don't come down. My father's photo, I realized, a cold spike of fear hitting my chest. It was in the duffel bag. He threw it in the street, but Maybe he picked it up. It's the only picture I have of him. Duk's eyes darkened. We can retrieve it. My men can go. No, I said firmly. If he has it, he'll destroy it the second he sees your men. He wants me. I will not allow you near him. I won't be near him. I'll be with you. But I have to be the one to face him. He needs to see that I'm not hiding in a tower. Duk looked at me for a long moment. He didn't like it. I could see the calculation behind his eyes, weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded. Fine. But we do it on my terms. We do not go to him. He comes to us. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number. Bring him to the warehouse, Duk said. Yes. The soundproof one. An hour later, we were in a different car. Not the Rolls-Royce and not the SUVs. A sleek, fast sports car. Duk drove. The warehouse was in the same district where he had found me, but this building was renovated. Inside, it was stark, empty, and terrifyingly quiet. In the center of the room, sitting on a wooden chair, was Derek. He wasn't tied up. He didn't need to be. 4 of Duk's men stood in the corners, silent as statues. Derek looked terrible. His blazer was rumpled, his eyes bloodshot, stubble on his chin. When we walked in, his head snapped up. Liz, he cried out, standing up. The guards took a step forward. Derek sat back down immediately. I knew you'd come, he said, his voice shaking. I knew you wouldn't leave me like this. I walked toward him, stopping 10 feet away. Duk stood right behind me, a shadow made of muscle and violence. Where's the photo, Derek? I asked. He reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out the small, framed photo of my dad. The glass was cracked. I saved it, he said, clutching it. I picked it up from the rain. I knew it meant a lot to you. See? I care about you, Liz. You threw it in the mud, I said flatly. You threw me in the mud. I was stressed. I made a mistake. Babe, please. All of this. He gestured to the warehouse to Duk. This is insane. You don't belong with these people. You're Elizabeth. My Elizabeth. We can fix this. I can forgive you for the scene at the gala. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. You forgive me? We're married, he pleaded. That means something. You can't just walk away with billions of dollars and leave your husband in the street. That's not Christian, Liz. That's not who you are. He stood up again, holding the photo out like a hostage. I want half, he said, his voice hardening. I know the law. Marital assets. I want half the money, and I'll give you the picture. And I'll sign the divorce papers. Half. That's 10 billion. It's fair. Duk stepped forward. The air temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. He is bargaining, Duk said to me. Shall I remove his tongue? No, I said. I held out my hand to Derek. Give me the photo. The money first. Derek shouted. Transfer it. I know you can do it on your phone. I looked at him. Really looked at him. I saw the greed. The pettiness. The absolute lack of love. Derek, I said softly. You think money is what makes me powerful? You think if I give you $10 billion, you'll be a king? Yes. I'm a businessman. I just need capital. You're a hole, I said. You're a bottomless pit. You could have all the money in the world, and you'd still be the man who kicks his wife out in the rain because he thinks he found something better. I took a step closer. Keep the photo. Derek blinked. What? Keep it. My father is in my heart. He's in the legacy he left me. He's the man standing behind me who honored a debt from 30 years ago. That photo? It's just paper. Like you. I turned to Duk. I'm done. Let's go. Derek panicked. His leverage was gone. Wait. No. Liz. Take it. He threw the photo at me. It slid across the concrete floor, stopping at my feet. I picked it up. I dusted it off. Thank you, I said. Now what? Derek asked, his voice trembling. Are you going to kill me? I looked at Duk. He was waiting for my command. No, I said. Death is too easy. And I don't want your blood on my conscience. I looked back at Derek. You wanted to be independent, Derek? You wanted to be free of the burden of me? You're free. The trust has blocked you from the banking system. You have no credit. You have no car. You have no home. But you have your freedom. I turned and walked toward the exit. Wait. How am I supposed to eat? How am I supposed to live? Derek screamed after us. I paused at the door. I looked back over my shoulder. I hear they're hiring cleaners at the shipyard, I said. It's honest work. Maybe it'll build some character. We walked out into the sunlight. Behind us, I heard Derek sobbing. It was the sound of a man who had everything and lost it all because he didn't know the value of what he held. Duk opened the car door for me. That was cold, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. I learned from the best, I replied. He closed the door. But he didn't get in immediately. He leaned against the window, looking at me through the glass. The look on his face was no longer just protective. It was something else. Something that made my breath hitch. We had destroyed the past. Now, we had to figure out the future. And for the first time in my life, the future looked dangerous, exciting, and full of promise. The drive back to the city was different. The silence wasn't heavy with fear or anticipation anymore. It was light, like the air after a summer storm. The kind of silence where you don't need to speak because everything that matters has already been said. Duk drove with one hand on the wheel, his other resting on the center console. I watched his profile, the sharp nose, the stoic brow, the way his jaw worked as he concentrated on the road. He was a terrifying man to the rest of the world. To me, he was the only solid thing in a universe that had turned to liquid. You are staring, he said, his eyes still on the road. I'm memorizing, I replied boldly. He glanced at me, a flicker of surprise in his dark eyes. Memorizing what? The man who saved my life. I want to remember exactly how you look right now. Before, I trailed off. Before what? Before you leave. The car swerved slightly, just a fraction of an inch, before he corrected it. He didn't say anything for a long time. We entered the tunnel leading to the spire, the orange lights flashing over us rhythmically. The debt is paid, Elizabeth, he said finally. His voice was tight. Your husband is neutralized. Your assets are secured. You have the best legal and security teams money can buy. My oath to your father, it is fulfilled. My chest tightened. It felt like a physical blow. So that's it? You drop me off at the penthouse, pat me on the head, and disappear back into the shadows. He pulled the car into the private garage and killed the engine. The silence returned, but now it was suffocating. He turned to face me. The shadows of the garage made his tattoos look like they were writhing on his skin. You are a billionaire, Elizabeth. You are a queen in this city now. You do not need a gangster staining your reputation. You need to build a life. A clean life. With someone who doesn't have blood on his hands. I unbuckled my seatbelt. I didn't open the door. I leaned across the console, invading his space. I saw his breath hitch. I saw his pupils dilate. Derek had clean hands, I whispered. He never worked a day in his life. His hands were soft. And he threw me away like garbage. I reached out and took Duk's hand, the one resting on the gear shift. I ran my fingers over the knuckles, over the rough skin, over the ink. These hands pulled me out of the mud. These hands put a coat over my shoulders when I was freezing. These hands defended me when no one else would. I looked up into his eyes. I don't want clean hands, Duk. I want yours. He stopped breathing. For a second, I thought he was going to push me away. He was a man of discipline, of iron will. Breaking his code was not something he did lightly. But then, the iron melted. He turned his hand over, interlacing his fingers with mine. His grip was crushing, desperate. He pulled me toward him, and I went willingly, scrambling over the console until I was practically in his lap. His other hand came up to cut my face, his thumb tracing my lower lip. He looked at me with a hunger that burned me from the inside out. Elizabeth, he groaned, his voice rough with suppressed emotion. If I stay, I will not leave. Once I claim something, I keep it. Forever. Do you understand what you are asking for? I'm not asking, I breathed. I'm demanding. You told me to demand what I want. And what do you want? You. He didn't wait anymore. He crashed his lips onto mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It was a possession. It tasted of danger and salvation and cedarwood. It was the release of days of tension, of unsaid words, of stolen glances. I buried my hands in his hair, pulling him closer, trying to merge our souls together. He broke the kiss, gasping, resting his forehead against mine. You are trouble, he murmured. I'm your trouble. Yes, he vowed. Mine. 3 months later. The boardroom of the Silent Trust was cold, sleek, and terrifying to most people. But I wasn't most people anymore. I sat at the head of the long mahogany table. I wore a white suit today, sharp, tailored, immaculate. My hair was styled in loose, confident waves. The quarterly reports for the logistics division show a 15% increase in efficiency since we implemented the new AI protocols, I said, looking down at the tablet in front of me. 12 men in expensive gray suits nodded furiously. They were terrified of me. Not because I was mean, but because they knew who stood in the corner of the room. Duk was there. He wasn't sitting at the table. He didn't need to. He was leaning against the wall, arms crossed, wearing a black suit that fit him like armor. He watched the room with the lazy intensity of a lion watching a herd of gazelles. Excellent, I continued. And regarding the charitable arm, the Foundation's new initiative for displaced women is fully funded? Yes, ma'am, the CFO stammered. Fully funded. We will open the first shelter next week. Good. The meeting was adjourned. The executives scrambled to leave, bowing to me, and then bowing even lower to Duk as they passed him. When the room was empty, the silence settled. It was a comfortable, warm silence. Duk pushed off the wall and walked toward me. He stopped at the edge of the table. You were ruthless with the marketing team, he noted, a smirk playing on his lips. They were underperforming. I learned from the best. He walked around the table and turned my chair so I was facing him. He placed his hands on the armrests, boxing me in. How does it feel? He asked. To be rich. To be free. I thought about it. I thought about the woman who scrubbed floors. I thought about the woman who cried in the rain. It feels like I can finally breathe. I reached up and straightened his tie. Have you heard from him? I didn't need to say the name. Derek. Duk's expression didn't change. He is working at a car wash in Incheon. He lives in a small studio apartment. He pays his taxes. He is existing. Good. Does it bother you? No, I said honestly. He's just a lesson I had to learn. A chapter one had to finish. Duk leaned down, his face inches from mine. And what chapter are we on now? I smiled. The best one. I stood up, closing the distance between us. I wrapped my arms around his neck, feeling the solid, reassuring weight of him. They say love is patient, love is kind, I whispered, echoing the words that had started this journey. I am not patient, Duk growled, his hands sliding down to my waist, pulling me flush against him. And I am certainly not kind. I kissed him, a soft, lingering press of lips that promised everything. No, I agreed. You're not. You're better. You're real. He buried his face in my neck, inhaling sharply. Let's go home, Mrs. Elizabeth. Let's go home. We walked out of the boardroom, hand in hand. Outside, the Seoul skyline was bright and endless. The rain had stopped a long time ago. The world was vast, dangerous, and beautiful. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving it. I was ruling it. That is the end of Elizabeth and Duk's story, but the beginning of their empire. If this story made you believe that sometimes your biggest loss is actually your biggest win, hit that like button. Let me know in the comments, would you have forgiven Derek, or did he get exactly what he deserved? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories of justice, romance, and revenge. I'll see you in the next one.